No one on the airbase that morning expected the impossible to happen. A critical rescue helicopter, one that dozens of lives depended on, had gone silent on the tarmac, its engines dead, its systems unresponsive, its crew helplessly standing around it. Technicians swarmed it, sweating under the sun, replacing parts, reciting procedures, arguing, panicking. Nothing worked. Every passing second meant someone out there, trapped and waiting for help, might not make it. And then, just when hope seemed to crumble, the base general did something no one understood. He reached for his phone, dialed a number that had been forgotten for years, and called a man who hadn't stepped foot on any military ground in almost 3 decades. A man dismissed as too old, too broken, too outdated. And none of them knew that within the next hour, their assumptions, their pride, and their beliefs about what it truly means to serve would be shattered forever. The sun beat down on Falcon Ridge Air Base as emergency crews rushed across the concrete. A green medevac helicopter sat awkwardly on its skids, tilted slightly forward like a wounded animal refusing to rise. 3 attempts had already been made to start it, but each time the rotors barely twitched before everything powered down again. Technicians tore open access panels, revealing a maze of wires, hoses, and aging parts. One of them, a young man with trembling hands, shook his head in disbelief. "Sir, we replaced the ignition module twice. The whole system is fried. She's done." General Markham, a man known for his calm resolve, stared at the lifeless machine as the sound of distant aircraft filled the background. He knew the stakes. There had been a landslide in a remote mountain sector. Civilians and soldiers alike were trapped. Their only chance was this helicopter, this old but trusted bird that had saved hundreds over the years. But now, when they needed her most, she lay silent. The crew chief stepped forward, frustration boiling in his voice. "These birds are ancient, sir. Half their systems aren't even in the manuals anymore. We're dealing with ghosts. We just can't figure her out." Markham closed his eyes. Ghosts. That word stuck in his mind longer than it should have, because this helicopter wasn't just a machine. It had a story, a legacy, and someone, somewhere, knew its soul better than anyone alive. Someone the base no longer spoke about. He opened his eyes and walked away from the helicopter, heading toward the command office. As he reached for the phone, memories of years past flickered in his mind: dusty airfields, roaring rotors, and a man who flew into places no map dared show. A man who had once saved Markham's own life. His hand trembled slightly as he dialed the long-forgotten number. It rang once or twice, and then clicked as a frail but steady voice answered. "Hello." Markham swallowed. "This is General Markham. I know it's been a long time, but we need your help. You remember her? She won't start. And lives are on the line." There was silence. Painful, heavy silence. Then the voice replied, older but sharp as steel. "I'll be there in an hour." When the veteran arrived at the base, the technicians didn't know who he was, only that he looked out of place. His hair was white, his shoulders slightly hunched, his jacket worn and faded. Some of the younger soldiers whispered, wondering why the general would bring in someone who looked like he belonged in a quiet countryside porch. Not on an active military airfield, but the general greeted him with a respect none of them had ever seen before. "Thank you for coming," Markham said, his voice softer than the crew had ever heard. The old veteran nodded, his eyes settling on the helicopter. "She's older now," he murmured. "But then again, so am I." The technician stepped aside reluctantly as the veteran approached the machine like one might approach an old friend. He placed his hand gently on the fuselage, his fingers tracing the metal, feeling every dent, every scar. "I flew her for 12 years, he said quietly. "She never failed me, not once." He climbed inside the cockpit with surprising steadiness, lowering himself into the pilot's seat. He glanced at the instrument panel, a chaotic mess to the untrained eye, but to him, it was like reading the handwriting of someone he had loved long ago. "You've been treating her like a modern machine," he said, his voice echoing through the cabin. "But she's from a different time. These engines don't respond to force, they respond to rhythm." He pointed at a junction box, hidden behind a panel no one had thought to check. "Didn't any of you test the legacy ignition bypass?" The technicians exchanged confused looks. "Sir, that system was discontinued 25 years ago. We didn't even know it existed." The veteran sighed. "That's the problem. She's speaking a language none of you learned." With a deliberate, practiced motion. He reached into the storage pocket beside him and retrieved a folded, yellowed piece of paper. The crew watched in amazement as he opened it. An old, handwritten start-up sequence passed down from pilots who had flown missions no one would ever publicly talk about. He adjusted a series of switches, in an order no manual mentioned, then paused with his hand on the starter. Everyone held their breath. He turned the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the rotor began to turn, struggling at first, then faster and faster, until the engine roared to life like a beast waking from a long sleep. Gasps filled the air. The technician stared, speechless. The general's eyes glistened with something he refused to call emotion. The veteran simply sat there, a small smile on his lips, bathed in the familiar vibration of the machine he once trusted with his life. He climbed out of the cockpit. "She's ready," he said softly. "Take her where she's needed." The general placed a hand on the veteran's shoulder. "You just saved more lives today than you'll ever know." The veteran shook his head. No, she did. And for the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a relic, not as a forgotten soldier, but as a piece of history that still mattered.